because we're here to learn more about how to get more in contact with feeling yourself, sensing yourself, and maybe also coming in contact with your own pleasure. But for me, that is not a goal. For me, what I just like people to be is more alive in every way possible, which means that it means feeling everything that we are. Also the parts that are more tender, more sore, more vulnerable, maybe sad, maybe angry. So for me there's not really it has to be this. But what I do know and what I've come to experience through my years of working with people is that this is my hypothesis, just so you know it, but that's what I've seen over and over again in the many, many clients I've been working with. It seems to me like we all have bliss, pleasure, and good body feeling as our foundation. That is how the natural state of the body is. Then comes this thing called life. And life starts already inside the womb. So sometimes you have the most beautiful time in the womb because everything is good. But sometimes you don't have the most beautiful time in the womb because sometimes your mother has a complicated pregnancy. Sometimes she has a malfunctioning placenta, which is the part that delivers the food and the oxygen for the baby. So some babies will actually experience already at the fetus state that they are already struggling for life. They're already struggling for survival, which means that already at that early state of life, their experience of life is nice and beautiful and soft and good already starts getting more difficult for them or distorted. Then comes delivery. Some deliveries are easy, some deliveries are complicated. Some deliveries are instrumental, meaning that either I as a midwife or a doctor has to pull hard on the child because it's sort of stuck in the pelvis, which means we might be using a vacuum to extract the baby, or we use forceps, grabbing around the head, pulling it out as well. Sometimes it ends up in a C-section. And a C-section is not a soft way of being born for a child. First of all, that little tiny hole that we cut, it's not very big, and we have to have a full baby out, so we pull quite hard on babies that come out through the stomach. A lot of people think that it's way harder to be born naturally. No, it's not. There's a lot of pulling, there's a lot of pushing, and there's a lot of getting scared if you come out from delivery. Because normally you would come into a space that is tempered, warm, nice, not too different from your inner environment, at least that's what we strive for. But if we're doing operations, we have these little things called bacteria and germs, and they thrive at high temperatures, so we always keep the temperature in a operation room really low, preferably around 18 degrees. And if you come from 37 degrees out into 18, it is freezing cold because as a baby you haven't learned to heat yourself up yet. That takes the next 3 days to really learn how to do it. So there comes the first cold shock, and then suddenly a lot of hands-on. And when we do operation, even though we try to keep the lights down, we need good lighting on where we're cutting, so we also have quite intense lights that you're met with. So some of you might be born from C-sections, and it also means that the beginning of your life might have been actually coming out with a shock, like, whoa, what is this? So that's where everything starts in life already. And then throughout the whole life, conditioning, programming, how is the school system you're raised in, how is the family system you're raised in, how are the communities you're raised in, how is the country as a whole, is there peace, is there war, all these things all affects our life throughout our whole living. And gradually we shield ourselves to protect ourselves. And that shielding comes in a way for feeling that natural flow of pleasure, of bliss, of peace and quiet, and just being very well and content in the body. And what I see when I work with clients and we work through all these different layers of something that is in the way for them fully feeling themselves, fully embracing themselves, and especially embracing that part of them that is blissful, maybe ecstatic, and very pleasurable, is that the more of the things we remove from the systems, from the conditioning, from the body, then people automatically start getting in contact with it. And very often you can experience, so if we make a nice little drawing, we get one of my other good drawings. So you imagine that this here is you today. This is your surface. Your surface. This is where you live your daily life. And that river of nice stuff that we were born into lies somewhere down here. La 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 la, and it flows, and it's nice, and it's comfortable, and it's full of love. That's why it's green, and because my blue one died. So, and then over the years, you build layers of layers of layers of layers of layers of layers of more layers and more layers. And all these layers here, they are the thing that are in the way for us on a daily basis, feeling that natural flow of it's just so good and blissful and nice and pleasurable to be in this body. And then in sessions or in breath work or in any kind of deep dive you do into the body typically, where you can experience that I was just me and then I did something for 2-3 hours and afterwards, whoa, everything was just so fantastic. I was so alive and I could feel it streaming, and you're all like, yay, this is what I came for, not life is going to be like that. Most of the time not. Because unfortunately what we usually don't do in these one time where we come right down here is that we didn't remove layer by layer by layer by layer by layer by layer. No, we dug a ditch. Near all the way down. So suddenly, if I could remove this, I would. Suddenly we have a ditch where we have removed all the layers in this little area, and then we actually can feel the flow, we can feel everything. But like any other ditch, if you don't secure the walls of a ditch and there's still a lot of height, those walls are going to cave in again over time. And that's usually what happens when we experience that, yeah, it lasted for a week or 2 or 3 or a month, and then it was like, stuff just started going back to how it was. And it's because we made a ditch that gave us a moment of experience of what it can be like, but we haven't cleared out enough for it to not sort of cave in on this one. And then it suddenly becomes this again, and then we might have another experience that is capable of making another ditch down here where we get full access in one go. But every time it disappears, it's because you have made yourself a little water ditch all the way down, just like drilling out for water, you know. You make a nice round hole in the ground and you go low enough until you reach the water. That's what you've been doing, and then the sound kicks in.